This season, we coming off a playoff win. I mean, we had a couple wins.
At least pride-wise, made me feel good because you don't ever want to get swept.
And I've never done this. I wouldn't wish this on anyone.
If you ask me, can the Bucks win Game 5? I'd put it at
100%
confidence. Yes.
I wouldn't wish this on anyone.
At this point, we don't know what's going to happen. You can get Game 6. You can steal it.
I wouldn't wish this on anyone.
Winning Game 6 and 7?
I wouldn't wish this on anyone.
I don't think they're going to win the whole series, but
I wouldn't wish this on anyone.
Hello and welcome to Dear Diaries, a Milwaukee Bucks podcast presented by us, the staff at Brewhoop. My name is Jack Traherne. I'm in the host chair today, and we are back with. We just couldn't get enough of each other, Finn. We recorded last week, and as you could kind of tell on the podcast, we were just strained for time. We wanted to talk about the other guys, basically, that we didn't get to talk about in last week's pod. So basically, we just wanted. I just threw it out there. I'm like, hey, you want to run it back? Let's run it back. We don't have. Diolu's not here, unfortunately. He had some business to attend to, but yeah, as I just foreshadowed, we've got Finn Keel in the building. Finn, what's up, man?
What's up, man? Somehow I haven't got enough of you yet, but here we are again. No, I mean, we were having quite the conversation. I know we were both really excited to talk draft the first time, and I'm really excited again to do it a second time. A little tired today, but nothing energizes me like talking ball. So looking forward to talking about a couple more prospects that we didn't get to touch on last time, especially from the Bucks lens.
Amen to that. Yeah. So the plan for the pod today is we're just going to talk about kind of the other guys who round out that kind of first round, kind of in most people's mocks and projections and stuff. And then Finn just released a mock draft on his blog, bench mob blog. I think it's called.
That's right.
Sorry. Yeah.
You're
and
good.
A bit of a tongue twister there. And so I will kind of like go through that mock and just see which kind of guys that I think are interesting fits. And Finn will just kind of like tell me what he was thinking on each of those. Or not each of the picks, but like a good amount of the picks. So, yeah, should be a pretty free-flowing conversation. And everyone go read Finn's mock. Read his mock draft, and also Jackson Gross just released his Substack, so people should also read that. It's called Jackson's Read, I think.
That's right. And he's been doing like the finals recaps, game by game so far, and he's been doing Jackson's a great storyteller, so he's been doing a good job with that content. Definitely go.
Yeah, exactly. He's been doing every game recap and putting a lot of work into that, so people should definitely go read that stuff. And then if you are somehow very interested in NBL content, which I can't imagine there would be many US viewers interested in the NBL, but I also I recently did a Substack. I think it's just my name. So if anyone wants to follow that.
Oh, Jack, I didn't even know that. I'm going to hit a follow while we keep talking. I'll read NBL, actually. I'm interested to kind of learn more. But anyways.
Okay, so let's get into this conversation. And we are going to be starting off with a guy who I need to learn more about. And I was really interested reading Jackson's recap on the community mock draft on Brewhoop, which remains ongoing. But let's talk about Cam Carr. Now, the reason that I was kind of like not knowing about Cam Carr is because basically he didn't fit into my category of I had not seen him play like in the USA basketball circuit. And then also I was not familiar with him like being like he came from like Tennessee, right? But he like didn't play for a year or like, so what's the go there? Can you explain to me his journey, Finn, to where he's at now?
Yeah, I mean, he did start at Tennessee, and he's a junior coming out of Baylor. And honestly, he wasn't even necessarily on my radar much until this year. Just as a guy who watches so much NBA, it's hard to keep up with like all the guys in the nooks and crannies of college that aren't like standout prospects. So in 2024-25, his sophomore year at Tennessee, he averaged just 4 points and played 4 games. So he actually might have been injured. I wish I could speak to that accurately. But yeah, this year with Baylor that he just had, he really broke out as honestly a big star. 19 points per game in 34 games, efficient across the board. Baylor did not make the tournament. They had a really weird situation with 0 returners from the 24-25 season to this past 25-26 season. So despite the talent on their roster, there just wasn't that same level of that gel there, even though Baylor's usually a good program. So sometimes with the late risers, it can be a little bit suspect. It's like how much of this is real, and like how much of this growth will continue. But so much about Carr's game, it does feel like it'll translate to the NBA at a high level.
So if you were to describe, so the couple of things that I know about Cam Carr, I know he's like really skinny and that he's a really good shooter. But like, could you describe to me, is his game like, how is he off the dribble? How is he getting to the rim? Kind of like, how cerebral is his game?
Yeah, so he gets a lot of Devin Vassell comps. I see it a bit. Sometimes I feel like people get blinded with like aesthetics when it comes to comps. Like Cam Carr looks like Devin Vassell.
And he kind of shoots like him too, does he not?
He does a little bit. So like I can see it. It's not a bad comp, but I also see some like smaller Trey Murphy because he's a bomber of a 3-point shooter. Like that's definitely going to be his standout NBA skill. Deep range, movement, high release, just really confident and efficient. But when it comes to like off the dribble stuff, like I don't think he's that same level of like mid-range shooter that Devin Vassell is, kind of like pull-up creator. He can do a little bit of that, like couple dribbles coming off a screen, hit a tough shot, and that feels more Trey Murphy-ish to me. But then what also feels like that is he's really bouncy and can like if it's coming off a cut or a dive or attacking a closeout, he can get to that rim and he will sky up for some crazy dunks, but also just like finishes kind of through people. He is skinny, so the contact at the NBA level could be a bit of a struggle for him at first, but he is a real, like, he's more than just a shooter in the sense where if you run him off the line, he's not going to be totally clueless.
Interesting. And what about his defense? Like, so I guess like coming into the NBA, he profiles as like a kind of like tertiary creator, like, I'm hesitant to say 3-and-D because it feels like he's got more in his bag than that, but it feels like maybe that could be his roles, like right off the bat. So what do you like about his defense, or what don't you like?
Yeah, I mean, he's long and he's athletic, and he can make some really like standout defensive plays in terms of like blocks and steals. He averaged 1.3 blocks and 0.9 steals at Baylor this past season. So if it's like a chase down or something like that, like he's got the length and he's got the bounce to be able to recover and alter shots. I feel like he's like a solid on-ball defender. He's gonna need to get stronger to really hold up against like some of the wings that are in today's NBA. Like if you're thinking about like a Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown, for example, those guys are strong and they will bump you to get to their spots. But like if we're talking about Devin Vassell as a comp, Vassell has been with the Spurs, like he's not some standout clamper, like lead POA guy, but he fits into a team scheme really well because he's able to make plays like off the ball, get blocks, rotate, switch, like just like do the little things, and that's really stood out for Vassell in the playoffs. And I do think that Carr could make a similar sort of impact to that.
Cool. I don't really have too many other questions about it. He seems like a guy like that has a chance to be like, oh, like he was like the 8th best player in this class, and everyone just kind of like went for the shiny objects or whatever, but like this guy was like sitting right here. He just seems like, I don't know, like you watch him and you just think like you could pretty clearly see like an NBA role for him pretty easily, but also like, I don't know, if other parts of his game don't develop, then maybe not. But do you see his like, I don't know, how do you view his NBA fit? Like, do you think it's pretty seamless or it will take a few years?
I see it as long as like the strength starts to come around, which really like in general, when we're talking about prospects, like strength is it's tough because on one hand, it's a high priority because you have to be physical to play in the NBA, but it's also like somewhat of a low concern to me because everybody, when they come into the NBA, has the opportunity to add a lot of muscle, and most guys do. I feel like we talked about this on a pod recently, but like Cade Cunningham and Şengün, like I saw a video of them from their summer league when they were rookies, and like them then compared to now, like they're a lot stronger. Like it's when you have access to NBA weight rooms, you can get stronger. And unlike maybe a guy like Kingston Fleming's, like Carr has the frame to me where it's like, oh yeah, if he fills it out, like he's gonna be fine. But then like in terms of the skill set, like I'm really enamored by him because he really just does feel like the ideal wing off ball like role player in the NBA, just with the shooting and the athleticism and the length. Like I think his role is very clear, and he does a lot of stuff that teams want.
Okay, and on your, I don't know if you have your big board right up, right now. Where do you have him?
I have him at 15th, and so he's right in like that lower lottery tier to me, which I have like 5 through 16 is one like general like lottery tier for me. He like since I have first learned about him, like he's really stood out to me as a guy where it's like, oh, this just feels like such a clear NBA player. So that moved him up my board, and then like he started to get even more buzz. I mean, he just went bananas at the combine, like at 30 in the first scrimmage, really started catching eyes. And so now it feels like that lower lottery tier is like really realistic for him.
Yeah. I'm always wary of like overreacting to the combine, but I'm pretty sure Jalen Williams, the OKC, the guard Jalen Williams on OKC.
J-Dub.
J-Dub, that's it. Yeah, I feel like if I remember correctly, he had a really good combine, and then like he somehow went, was it 12th? I want to say it was 12th. And then Usman Deng, who's now on the Bucks, went 11th, if I'm also not mistaken. I mean, the combine, it's take it with something of a grain of salt, but also if you like what you see, there are examples of guys just being great picks who have played in the combine and whatnot. And maybe Cam Carr is the next one of that. All right, let's move on to Morez Johnson. He feels like kind of like the ultimate meat and potatoes type of big, where like guys, his film won't necessarily like jump off the pages like some sexy film or something, but just about everyone has him in like that, I don't know, 8 to 12, I want to say, range or whatever. So what do you like? What is the appeal of Morez Johnson Jr. to you?
He is a insane athlete. Like his physical profile is just wild because he's 6'10". He is incredibly strong, and like his mobility is like honestly like freakish for his size. Really. So I was just writing about him before this because he's going to be part of that Brew Hoop big board project. Go check that out after listening to this episode. But he really like, I think he's a better defender than pretty much everybody who's a consensus lottery pick, which is kind of funny if you think about it. But even like Bonanza, it's like, yeah, I mean, Morez is like a defender is better. Like I think he's one of the 3 to 5 best on that end in the class. The versatility and the switchability are just off the charts. Like Michigan, they ran this giant lineup of Yaxel Lendeborg, Morez Johnson, and Adai Mara, and all of those guys are awesome defenders. But like that lineup really worked because Morez and also Yaxel were able to go and be comfortable on the perimeter and switch on the wings and switch on the guards. Like he's not OG Anunoby. So he's not going to be like, oh, go guard like De'Aaron Fox, like what's happening in the finals right now. But like if that switch happens, like you feel more than comfortable with Morez. So like the defense with the athleticism and the toughness and just like the winning acumen that he showed at Michigan, that's definitely the main appeal.
Yeah, his and again, I think I've mentioned this on a pod before, but the fact that he ends up starting and like being like a winning piece of like every team that he's been on. Like he started for what was it? I think it was the U19 USA team. He was a huge, like started every game for that team. And he was like a huge, just glue guy, did what the team, he feels like the ultimate, like the way, like I think about like Isaiah Hardenstein on the Thunder, like he will just do anything to win. and there's no like ego about it or like I want my own shots. And that to me is like the ultimate know your role guy that like every team needs to win. What do you think of that assessment? Like the fact that he kind of just always finds himself on winning teams and playing major roles on those teams.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. I mean, he didn't. So this was his sophomore year at Michigan that he's coming off, and at Illinois as a freshman, he was more of just like a rotation bench piece. Looks like 17 minutes per game, but like in general, like I mean, even what he did like at Michigan is enough to clarify it for me. And I mean, I don't watch that U19 stuff like you. I probably should, but like that totally makes sense to me. That like if he steps into that. Like really any situation, like new roster, new collection of guys, like coaches are learning all the players. You're going to look at what Morez does on the court and you're going to want to play him in any situation because he does he does winning stuff and it's that simple.
Yeah. Yeah. On that team, I from memory, like Bonanza was on the team. I don't think Boozer played in that tournament. But there was a bunch of like, I don't know what you'd call like flashy names that kind of wanted a lot of shots. And then he just kind of like, I was like, oh yeah, this guy's like they won the whole thing. And like this guy was like the one constant, like he's willing to just like put his ego to the side and just kind of like set screens, make good passes, like be unselfish and whatnot. So I was really impressed with him. I don't really have too many other questions. Where is he on your big board?
I have him 14th now.
Okay.
Right above Cam Carr. And really I've been grappling for a long time here with like who I actually like better, him or Yaxel. I mean, really like all three of the Michigan guys, I'm a big fan. I think we've talked about that before, but like Morez, I mean, we'll talk about it later potentially, but I have him even higher than 14th on my mock. Like, I think he's got a real chance at being in that late lottery. I have a comp for Morez that I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on. Yeah. He kind of reminds me a bit of like prospect early career Bam Adebayo. And I don't necessarily see like the same. I mean, like Bam's offensive growth is such an outlier to me. Just like he developed so much skill as like a face-up driver.
Yeah, he was very like rough and tumble at Kentucky. Like I remember there was like the skill that he's developed. Like now he's like shooting threes, but like even just like pull up mid ranges, like you would not imagine him doing any of that stuff at Kentucky.
Right, absolutely. Like, yeah, he's a 20-point per game scorer. I mean, he scored freaking 83 points in a game. And, like, I don't predict that ceiling for Morez, but, like, when I look at, like, the fundamental version of Bam, who's, like you said, like, he kind of, like, scraps for his points, just, like, play finisher athlete, and then, like, defense with the versatility is where he really hangs his hat. That feels like a mold for Morez where, like, I mean, I wouldn't project, like I wouldn't put it on him to become like a 20-point per game scorer just because he kind of plays like Bam, but like that like fundamental, like the defensive versatility that really feels like Bamish to me.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, he would have very similar measurements to Bam. If I'm not, like Bam is an undersized center. I want to say Bam is like what 6'10". He doesn't.
Yeah, like 6'9", 6'10". Like they're both tweeners.
It's so funny how like a 6'10" guy now is like considered undersized for the center position in the NBA. Right. But it truly is like that's like we were talking about Jaden Quaintance. We may or may not get to Jaden Quaintance in this episode, but we were talking about him, and we were like, oh, he's 6'9", undersized for a center, and it's like it kind of is. It's really interesting. Okay, did you have anything final you wanted to add on Morez, or we can move on to Abuka Okori if you want?
Let's move on to Okori.
Okay, so Okori, you have him going 8th in your mock to the Atlanta Hawks. So you're clearly like, and Okori seems to be like a fan favorite for a lot of people. So by the way, I had not watched a whole lot of Okori, but I've been watching his some highlights in preparation for this episode over the past few days, and he screams like third guard to me, like scorer off the bench, maybe your third or fourth guard that can kind of like be a bridge from the like be a source of offense within like a second unit and drive offenses and stuff. But do you see like a starting point guard potential for him, or like how do you see him in his NBA role?
Yeah, so I mean, when I think about like how I approach the lottery and which prospects I want to draft, like at eighth, for example, like I think that that's the place to take star swings, and I think that Corey has a legitimate star trait in his ability to get to the rim. Like rim pressure, it's one of like the top skills that I value in any sort of guard. Because even if you're talking about like that kind of like backup point guard, like maybe we're thinking like a TJ McConnell, that's not an exact comp for a Corey, but like that kind of like pace changer. Those guys get their feet in the paint and they make plays because of it and they push the pace. And that's really valuable. Like you want your point guard to be able to dictate the tempo, and like the best way to create an advantage is to get the paint. And Corey is incredible at getting to the paint, just like ridiculous rates of getting to the rim, getting to the free throw line, that kind of stuff. He's like, I mean, he is like a smaller guy. Like he's got that similar A-cuff frame where it's like 6'2", 6'7" wingspan, but like he's a little skinny. So maybe, you know, he'll need to get stronger and stuff to really hang with the NBA physicality. But like, I think that trait, and then like of that rim pressure, but then also with his shot making, his length, like overall, like I think there's a profile there for a real star outcome. And even if he doesn't hit that, I do still think that he could be a really good player.
Yeah. Shout out to I don't know if you know this guy a bit. I was watching James Barlow's recap.
Oh
on,
yeah.
He did I was just watching his scouting report, and he threw out Kyrie Irving as like he thought that Corey had watched a lot of Kyrie Irving in his ability to like get to the rim. And also he can do the whatever you want to call it, the foul grifting, the foul drawing. I believe he got up a lot of free throws. So that's always a good like the thing with like foul drawing is like it really is a skill. Like people will just put it up to like, oh, you're flopping or whatever. But like it's like the way to like draw contact and accentuate contact. And Corey seems to have that, which is like for a small guard is like really important. But yeah, like he I believe so the whole 6'7" wingspan is also pretty like the fact that he's 6'1" is like helped the fact that he has really long arms. So what do you think about his kind of my point about his foul drawing?
Yeah, that is definitely something that when you look across stars in the NBA right now, that's all something they've got in their bag. I really just think his overall offensive scoring profile projects really well. Like the jump shot's a little funky, but like just the type of shot making he was able to do at Stanford, like I have no doubt that he'll be able to hit some pull-up threes, like be a real threat. Like, obviously he gets to the rim really well, but that doesn't mean you're just going to go under on him every time. Like, I think he could be that kind of matchup problem. And really, like, at Stanford, so I was just recently watching their game against Duke this season, and the type of, like, they were just all in, Duke was, on stopping a Corey. Like, anybody else go do something. Like, a Corey played on a Stanford team that just like there weren't any other real prospects or like particular standout players in my mind. And so he did so much on offense and he was able to create so much, whether it's getting to the line like you were talking about, or just getting to the rim and finishing or hitting jump shots. And I think a bit of a knock on him, people mention, is he's not quite the same level of playmaker as some of these other guards, but I also think he's not bad and he creates enough advantages where like he can learn how to leverage those. Like if he keeps beating guys and getting to the paint, if he's just like getting kickouts, getting dump offs, like even if it's like the simple stuff, like he's going to generate those at such a high rate. Like I just think like he really could be one of the better offensive guards.
Yeah. He kind of like gives me the same vibe that I watch when I watch Kingston Flemings, in that like he just like there's like a certain trait to guys who can like read defenses and like they can kind of just dribble around people, if that makes sense. Like they read like the high hedge and they can attack it, and then like they can pitch it to the roller in like the short roll and stuff. And he kind of gives me those twitchy, like I know what's going to happen before you do type of vibes. And I did want to mention that game against Duke that you were. I don't think I watched too many highlights from that game. I know Duke won that game. I do remember it. But I remember that he played North Carolina the game before, because they had the North Carolina teams come across the entire country to play the California teams. Of course,
welcome to modern college basketball. Same thing happens in the Big Ten with like UCLA and Wisconsin. I digress.
It's just so weird. Anyway, but I believe, and he destroyed North Carolina in that game before, so it was like fresh. And I guarantee the Duke coaches were like, okay, like, we know who we have to shut down, and it also helps that like Stanford wasn't really a great team around Ibuka Corey. So, yeah. Any final thoughts on him?
Yeah, shout out Diolu #1, because he made sure to tell us. He said mention that UNC game where he had 36. Couldn't be on but that was a shout he gave. So I'm glad you brought it up, even if it was unintentional. But yeah, I mean, I just like to wrap it up with the Corey. Like, I guess I'm willing. Like, it's a bit of a hot take that I have him. I do have him 10th on my board, 8th on the mock, but like he's kind of I liked his fit with the Hawks. But it might be a bit of a hot take, but like I would ride with that bet personally, just because of the way that I approach the lottery. And like I see an incredibly productive freshman who did so much with not very much at Stanford and has a lot of his profile to like scream offensive star. And I'll take the bet, and we'll see. Either 5 years from now, I'll be really reevaluating my approach, or I'll be able to tell some people I told you so. I don't know. We'll find out.
So I have to know, who is higher. Like, is he higher than Kingston Flemings for you?
Yeah, one spot.
Interesting. Okay. And yeah, no, that's really my only question. Okay, let's move on to. And by the way, completely defensible position, because Corey, he really impressed me in the short amount of film that I watched on him, but I need to watch more. Okay, let's chat another guy that I really that I don't know too much. I haven't watched too much film about him. I did watch him at the U17. He was on the same team as Christian Andersen on that Germany team. For people that don't know, Christian Andersen is actually part German. I assume he's got that dual citizenship or whatever, but he plays for it was the U17, because I remember I was watching Dash Daniels and all those guys play for Australia. But Christian Andersen and Hannes Steinbach absolutely destroyed Australia in like a semi-final game or something. But Hannes Steinbach, describe to me what he is as a player.
Yeah, you're talking to me about Steinbach here at a pretty poor timing, because I was just watching Washington's game against Baylor. It was like in November, and Steinbach, he didn't look awesome. But
yeah,
so the basic sell with him is this: he's a big guy, like 6'11" center, who does the traditional stuff at a really solid level and just is productive. He's one of the best rebounders in the whole class, which, I mean, that like the possession battle is something that I think coaches really pay a lot of attention to in front offices in the NBA right now. Like, how can we maximize scoring chances and minimize the other team's scoring chances? Like that feels so basic, but at the same time, like that's a real analytical focus. I remember at a Bucks game that I covered this year in person, like I asked Charles Lee some sort of question about offensive rebounding, because the Hornets are good at it. Bucks are not good at defensive rebounding. And he was talking about how one of their emphasis is that. But yeah, so Steinbach, like he's this rebounder. He's an efficient play finisher. He's more of like a drop coverage big. He's big. He's solid. He's not like super dynamic, but so he's not flashy, but he's gonna just like do the productive stuff out there.
Cool. And his defensively, is he like someone you rely on, or did he not, like, is he kind of like a bit of a stick in the mud in terms of like not stick in the mud, but does he have kind of like heavy feet? Like, what's your assessment of his defense?
Yeah, so this is the thing. Like when I just mentioned that Baylor game, he's very much like a slower drop coverage guy. Like I don't see him necessarily doing a lot of hedging or like even switching and holding up well doing that at the NBA level. But even in his drop coverage, like he can block a shot, and I feel like he does like a fine job of challenging vertically, but also like a bit foul prone, and he be like because of the way that he tries to challenge shots and isn't super like bouncy or twitchy or anything. Like guys can just kind of finish through him, I feel like, or force him into fouls because they just go right into his chest. And that's something that I keep seeing in the playoffs. Like Luke Cornett, for example, on the Spurs, like he's kind of similar to Steinbach a little bit, even taller, like 7'2". And in the regular season, like, hey, great backup. Like, you can really rely on him at certain points. But there's also been times in these playoffs where he's unplayable. And, like, Wemby comes off the floor. And, I mean, maybe that's just because it's Wemby. But, like, teams then see Cornett. And they're like, oh, man, we're getting to that paint.
Yeah.
Like, go. And his resistance is, like, just spotty because, like, on one hand, like, he challenges well fundamentally and he's big. But on the other hand, like he's not really this like threatening force. And so like I feel that way about Steinbach. Like I feel like he's kind of limited to how he's gonna be able to play defense, and he might get kind of picked on because of it.
Yeah, I've seen a good amount of analysis from like people that I trust in the draft space that are like, is Steinbach like the defender that people make him out to be? Because like there seems to be like, and that's what would give me pause a little bit, like, because, I mean, if you're kind of like a basic meat and potatoes big, like the way we talk about Morez Johnson on the defensive end, like you'd love if Steinbach was like something approximating that. It does worry me a bit if it's like there's like a good chance that the Bucks will have like they could have like 3 or 4 first round picks in this draft if they really wanted to, and like. I was thinking like, you know, if they get like pick 19 or something, would I be happy with Steinbach as an option? And then hearing like that he's not like necessarily like a lockdown defender the way you would hope is a bit worrying to me. But what do you think about his like offensive, like he's not a shooter, right? But also can he do you think he'll develop like a floater or like much craft around the rim, or is he literally just like kind of like dunks and layups kind of thing?
Yeah, you know, honestly, sometimes I just like kind of forget about it, but he actually, I think, could be a shooter.
Oh, okay.
And that's a bit of his appeal. So he shot 53 threes in 30 games at Washington and made 34% of them. And like honestly, like the spot up shot, it doesn't look bad. And he shot 76% at the line too. So
okay, yeah.
Really like that. I mean, when we talked about like Mara on the last pod, like we've talked a bit about what it looks like to be like a gimmick shooter as a big man and how it's like, okay, cool. Yeah, maybe you can make one, but is this really a shot defenses are going to respect? I do think that maybe Steinbach could become a shooter that defenses respect on some level. I do think that the interior scoring is always going to kind of be at the center of his game, because he has pretty good touch and he can finish in a few different ways as a roll man and stuff, even if he's not like the biggest like dynamic lob threat, jump out of the gym sort of guy. So he's gonna hang his hat more on offense than he will on defense in the NBA, in addition to the rebounding. So I think if the shot comes around, that makes him a little more playable.
Cool. Cool. And he's a freshman, right? Like he's pretty young, correct?
Yes. So that's why, like, even though I'm like partially skeptical of him in some ways, it's also like, hey, very productive freshman in a good conference with like some real NBA traits. Like, you know, that can only fall so far on the board.
Cool. All right, let's move on to Chris. Do you want to go Chris Sinak now?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. So Sinak, kind of like a tweener forward out of Houston. He had some he's got like pretty insane measurables if I'm not mistaken, but had a bit of an up and down year. I remember watching a game. It was Iowa State Houston. It was one of those big blockbuster games, and he took some shots that drove his coach absolutely insane. But what do you think about? He's kind of like he's kind of one of those guys like in the kind of like 18 to 25 range who seems like a high variance, like high risk, high reward guy. Is that kind of your read on him?
Absolutely. Yeah, he's pretty hypothetical. I don't think it's quite like Kareem Lopez level. Because I do think like he has potentially a few more traits that he can really like hang his hat on coming into the league. Even if he's not like an instant impact guy, because his motor's really high. He's a great athlete. He rebounds really hard. And so I think I saw recently, I could probably double check this quick while I'm talking, but he took more jump shots this past season as a freshman than he did shots at the rim as a big man, which is interesting because, so he shot 2.4 threes a game to 5.5 twos, but he also takes a lot of like mid-range jumpers. I feel like the shot projects to be decent, but like that's kind of got to be what he has to figure out. At least offensively, it's like what is your role, and like how are you actually going to play on a night-to-night basis? Because I kind of think he wants to be a shooter, but I feel like he has to start more with that play finishing. And then the defensive stuff is interesting because, like you mentioned, crazy measurables, but also just a half a block a game, and the positioning and the IQ I feel like can just kind of be spotty sometimes. He's a good athlete and he can move well and he's switchable, but again, it's kind of just like what is your role? So if you're a team drafting him, you're just looking to figure out like how do we take this guy who has these tools and fit him into a role that we want him to play, and then like how well will he like accept that and adjust into it?
Yeah, he that was my whole thing. Like I'm just wondering like what his role is. It feels like the first step for him, it feels like would be figuring out the shot and then kind of like building the base out from there. But like you said, it's like a really hypothetical gamble at this point because he doesn't really have like a set NBA skill set. What I will say is I actually he put out like a YouTube vlog. Like I'm a fiend for any like YouTube pre-draft vlog stuff. He put out one of them and Kelvin Sampson spoke very highly of him as a human being,
yes,
which I rate extremely important. Like you don't go and play for a coach like Kelvin Sampson if you don't have good character, and that is something that I actually that's like a bull in his, not a bull in his credit to him, I guess what I'm trying to say. But
feather in his cap.
Feather. That's that's it. But yeah, he. These guys like that I feel like have like excellent character. I feel like tend to work it out. What do you think about that?
That definitely matters, and that's definitely the type of thing that teams look at. Like there's a reason why they do these interviews and they try to like figure out who guys are. Like anecdotally, when I was at the draft combine in Chicago, I had this meetup with a scout for an NBA team and his friend who does like some independent work. And we were kind of talking for a while about like the interviews and what that looks like and how much like intel goes into things more than just what you see on the court. And what the scout guy is telling me, he's like, I feel good about my evaluation to the point where like, I'm not going to recommend that we draft a bad player. Yeah. So then it's just about like figuring out like who they are as people, because that matters more than what you might think. So like, if you're just talking about like a guy's character, like number one, like guys who come out of Houston and like playing for Kelvin Sampson, like, yeah, that means something. Like you mentioned that specifically, like that is a program that produces winners, and Kelvin Sampson is just a hell of a respected coach. So that means something. But then like when you think about high character guys and kids who are willing to work hard, it's like that's where you go into any situation, and at least in theory, you're willing to put your head down, accept that you have to work, you do the work, you become a good teammate, you're coachable, like all that stuff. Like it goes a really long way in succeeding in the NBA. So that's definitely like a reason to be optimistic about him as a project.
Yeah, and ironically, Kingston Flemings is the exact same way. You hear him speak, and you're like, "I'll take this guy at number one." You hear Kingston Flemings speak, you're just like, "All right, show is over. We're gonna draft this guy." Okay, cool. All right, take your pick. Next guy: Koa Pete, Christian Anderson, Malik Thomas.
Ooh, let's talk some Koa Pete. Why don't we? Well, what's
All right.
your take on him?
He was one of those guys where I just like for most of the year I'm like I don't get it. I do know in much the same way as Morez Johnson, he continually got chosen for USA team after USA team. He started on every one of those teams. He clearly is an excellent character guy who's willing to give himself up for the team. I love the fact that he sets really good screens, but at some point it feels like you have to have like he's like an undersized four-man who can't shoot. So it's like what, and it doesn't feel like he has, unlike Sanak where the shot is kind of like it's pretty smooth, like it didn't necessarily go in, but it's smooth. Like Koa Pete, like I don't know if you saw the pre-draft stuff of him, but like he did some surgery on his shot and like somehow made it look worse. So yeah, that's kind of my read, but what's your read?
Yeah, there's a lot of buzz about that jump shot, and man, it never really looked good. Now, to his credit, he did hit a lot of like pull-up jump shots at Arizona from the mid-range, and they always looked kind of funny because I feel like they just like flew funny. Like I don't know, you'd have to go watch the clips like some if you're listening, and like you probably see what I'm saying. It was almost a bit more like a line drive, just like throwing the ball in. It never looked bad, but now like you mentioned the surgery. But yeah, I mean like Koa Pete is a football player. It's kind of like my read, and he does come from a football family. And when I learned that for the first time, I was like, oh, like shit, duh. Like this makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned the character, and I think that's kind of like what I've heard too. Like he just seems like a good kid. And then like the athletic foundation is there too for sure. I mean, just like this massive guy who can jump and he plays hard and he's no stiff when it comes to movement and stuff for the most part. So like he's got that. But yeah, I don't know what his basketball skill is really.
It's like rebounding, and that's kind of it at this point.
Yeah, and like rebounding really matters. But that just can't be what you can't be a rebounding specialist, because even like Jared Vanderbilt he's rebounding specialist, but he's also like a generally like very trusted defensive player who the Lakers will even like throw on Steph Curry, and that's not going to be Koa Pete. So like yeah, he's got to figure out like how he can put the ball in the basket in a half court, and like yeah, if he's playing the 4 or the 5 or the 3, like I don't think he's a 5. He's probably just a 4. I don't really like worry about him too much on defense. Like I feel like if he's just like an athletic 4 who can do some switching, that's fine. But the offensive stuff is just so unrefined, and that's really tricky.
Yeah, and like I was talking about with Sanak, you can kind of project like some improvement, but like it's like okay, like is this guy ever going to be able to like if he stepped into the NBA today, people would stand like 10 feet off him and just be like, have at it, any shot you want. And so yeah, I love the intangibles that he brings, like some of the like the rebounding, the kind of like pass. He's like a decent passer, I think.
Yes.
But yeah, he it's just tough to picture it. I don't know.
Yeah, he cares. And he contributed in a generally big way to a really good Arizona team as a freshman. That kind of stuff, like at a baseline level, is why you have to respect these prospects, even with so many question marks. It's like, what's your NBA skill? But you still impacted the game. Like obviously, you can be on the floor in meaningful basketball games against competition. But yeah, I think he just has to go to a situation where he's going to be able to play with within a system and with players who make the game easy for him, and that'll be his best chance of succeeding.
It would have to be like a team that has like a stretch five and allows him to play as like a rolling four-man, kind of like if he just has to be the roller on pick and rolls, and he definitely knows how to play, like he knows how to pass out of those situations. But yeah, there needs to be some more. He wouldn't fit in like a traditional scenario necessarily. There's a bit of like that Kareem Lopez, like scored through force in a way that's not translatable to the NBA with him. Yeah, I don't know. Any final thoughts?
Let's circle back to him in the mock draft because I think my fit for him on there is interesting.
Okay, will do. Let's talk about Malik Thomas. Let's do him now because he was one of the guys who it was like reported the next day after the deadline that he had that he had stayed in the draft. Like somehow the news never really got out, but he's a really interesting player because like I was trying to think of a comp for him. Like he's kind of this wiry like 2-3 guard who like he's a little bit wild with the ball, but also has some ability. And then I saw someone online say Will Barton. And then I'm like, oh, that's it. Like, that's it. Like Will Barton. So I don't know if you remember Will Barton from way back in the day. You probably do, Finn. But
yes.
But yeah, I don't know. What is your? Just talk to me about Malik Thomas. What do you think about him as a player?
Yeah, I wish I had a good comp for him. Will Barton was a funky guy. I liked him even. I mean, like the beginning of his career and stuff was kind of before my time, but even like late with the Nuggets, like he had some real seasons.
Yeah, I remember him with the Blazers. I want to say much of his career.
Yeah, that's who he played for, probably like early 2010s. Like,
okay,
yeah. But yeah, so Malik Thomas, like he is like a 3-and-D off guard. I feel pretty. Like that's like a role or like a mold that people kind of like they like to throw around, a label that people really like to throw around at these off-ball guys. But I actually think for the most part he fits it. He will make threes and like mid-rangers too that most players would not attempt. You can view that as a positive or maybe a negative, I guess, if you want. But like generally that just speaks to like he's a shooter and he's a microwave. But he's not just like limited to any sort of like spot up stuff. Like he can really hit most types of jump shots that are out there. And even though he has like a funky shot, like he gets it off and he's confident, just a little streaky. And he competes. So I think he plays defense. He'll probably mostly just guard guards in the NBA, maybe a little bit of wings. Cause he's like 6'4", 6'7" wingspan, like something along that range. So he's another guy where it feels like he has a pretty generally clear NBA role. I think it's just for him about like finding strength and finding consistency and maybe ironing out the shot profile just a little bit to get some more like rim stuff in there than like just like settling for the mid range.
Yeah, I didn't watch a whole lot of him, but it felt like he was like a little bit. I don't know. Is your read on him that he's a little bit of a wild player, or am I overstating that?
No, I think that's fair. Because kind of like I said, like he will make shots that a lot of guys wouldn't take. Which like that, yeah, like I said, like that's a little iffy. It's a little wild. He's a bit of like he's a wild card microwave.
Yeah, I kind of see him. Like, I don't know if people have watched the Calipari offenses when he was at Kentucky, and I didn't watch a whole lot of Arkansas this year, but like, I assume he run the same offense with like guys running off kind of like diamond formations where they run off screens around the top and kind of like this wheel formation kind of thing that he did. I can't remember exactly what the terminology for that type of set is called, but I can imagine him being. Like, you remember the old Portland Trailblazers offense where they kind of ran Dame and CJ off these people call it, what's the set? It's called a Ricky set where they run them off a pin down and then run them back off that same screen going back around, and it's just kind of. Is
it like coming like you'll come around the top but then like back cut it the second time, or like vice versa?
It's more like okay, so like let's say you come off a pin down and the defender goes under the screen. Sorry, let's say they go over the screen, and then you think like you got over the screen, but then they'll come back off for a flare off that same screen. From that same screener. So it's like you think you were done. I can imagine him kind of thriving in those sort of sets where he's kind of more or less doing a lot of running, is what I'm trying to point out, because he seems like a guy who just kind of like the way his wiry frame and his kind of like athletic traits. I feel like he could succeed in a scheme where he's kind of just doing a lot of running off screens and kind of just making his defender just tire him out over the course of a game. He seems like that type. Like I watched him, and that was what immediately came to mind, just with his frame and stuff. So I don't know if you have any thoughts about that.
Yeah, I mean that's some high level analysis. I think that kind of made me think of like a bit of a comparison. I feel like he's sort of like Jordan Clarkson without a Julian Newman gene. Meaning he's never gonna. You're familiar with Julian Newman, like he's never gonna, like, for the most part at least. Like I don't think he's like the best processor, but he's not gonna try to like rat-tat-tat like bag work you.
Yeah,
but
like he gets to places on his dribble. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's got like I mean, like Jordan Clarkson is just like the type of guy who can take any shot, and I feel like he's always like active on offense. Like he can come off some screens, like ball screens, but also like the off-ball screens, like you're saying. Like just kind of like anywhere on the floor, you got to consider that he's like ready to shoot, and he is gonna like get involved on offense. I think that's kind of Malik Thomas.
Yeah, because it's like in the NBA there are like I don't know, like probably bring up bad memories, but like Jay Crowder, for example, on the Bucks, just like he was just like
don't get me started.
don't get Kyle started. If Kyle was on this podcast, he'd probably gasket. Anyway, but like you have like standstill shooters, and he reminds me of a guy who can do the standstill shoot. Like he's a good shooter, but also you can use him in more creative ways, which I think is part of his appeal. But let's anyway, do you have any final thoughts on him?
No, we can move on.
Cool. Okay, Bennett, Sturtz, or Christian Anderson, who you want to talk about?
Let's talk some Christian Anderson.
Okay, so I haven't watched a whole of Texas Tech, but my read from him is like elite shooter, like great pick and roll craft, can make all the passes in the world, but he's one of these guys who lacks explosion and kind of needs screens to get places on the court. Is that your read?
Yeah, that feels about right. That like elite shooter, like absolutely, like he's got to be probably one of the 3 to 5 best shooters in the whole class. Whether it's the pull up or the off the catch, like I kind of get some Anthony Simons vibes from him a little bit. But even so, my thing a bit with Anderson is like he tested pretty well athletically, but like you're right that he's mostly like a screen player, and I also just think that he like might actually be too small.
Yeah.
Like he's
really he's like light as well.
Right, that's exactly it. Yeah, he's like 6'2", but then he's also skinny, and you don't want to see him, I think, like go Jamal Shed mode and get like big and husky so he can like play more defense, because I think that takes away from him being able to kind of like dance with the ball on offense and be like the type of dynamic shooter that he is. So really, really talented ball guard. Great shooter, can play out of the pick and roll and really make plays for other guys. I feel like there are some turnover concerns, but the size is definitely the biggest worry.
Yeah, I was watching him at the U19, one of those tournaments. He was playing Australia, and he absolutely destroyed Australia, like him and Steinbach, just like I mentioned. You could see like just the way he was, almost just the way he was wearing his jersey. His jersey seemed like too big for him in like a way, and that was like against guys like his age, and like he's clearly better than most of those guys. And you just think like is this going to work in the NBA? Like, he really is, like, in a way that, like, Braden Burries is, like, he's got, like, he's 6'4", so he's taller and that, but also, like, the build, like, the body type is just different. So, yeah, I do. Yeah, he screams like, a third or fourth guard to me, probably.
Yeah, I really like Anderson just from the perspective of like I like him as a basketball player. But like as a prospect, like there was a time where I was kind of talking myself potentially more into like mid to like first round to even late lottery because like you could maybe talk yourself into like the shooting and then like the pick and roll stuff being like kind of like that star trait, but then I've started to like the like other guards better or just like other bets because I think the size is a concern and like um I don't know if he's really gonna be good enough as like a point guard to be the starter. Like I feel like the shooting is so much of the appeal and like the rim stuff. Like once he's inside the arc, it's like maybe okay. So I don't know. Like he's definitely like a first round pick, and there's going to be like some sort of role for him. But if he can mold into it and like adjust to the NBA physically, just because of the shooting, like that's always something teams are going to covet. I'm unfortunately a little skeptical of him, even though I feel like he's a cool player.
Where do you have him on your big board?
I have him 18th now.
Yeah.
He's right behind Sturt, so we can talk about next. Like I think that there's enough there where he's like, I feel like he's worth that first round bet, even ahead of like, as I start to go down a little further, it's like Sanak and Kareem Lopez and Koa Pete, where we have these more question marks about him, but there's still the potential. Like, I think there's less question marks with Anderson, but
yeah, he definitely has more of like a NBA ready kind of game. Like just as far as he knows what his skill set is and what it will be. Like shooting will be number one on the list, like deadly shooter, and then he'll build his game out from that. But you just wonder about the defensive ceiling and is the juice worth the squeeze having a guy like that on the court and all these stuff. So but yeah, let's talk about Bennett Sturtz. And I foreshadowed on the last episode we did that like he was just one of those guys that I only really watched like highlights of him. Like I didn't catch a whole lot of Iowa games. The only game I watched was when they played Florida, when they beat Florida in that like Elite Eight game, I want to say, but that was about it. He's got like solid measurables. Like he's like 6'4", I want to say. Maybe he's
that sounds about right.
Yeah. But yeah, he I don't know. He seems like solid floor general, but not necessarily like an impact player. What do you think about him?
Well, so first and foremost, like he's really a fascinating player because in college he was an offense like unto himself, truly, and like it was that way at Drake, and then he followed his coach Ben McCollum to Iowa for this past season, and it really was extra true at Iowa that like he just was the system, and he played like the entire game. He averaged.
I remember this. Yeah.
Yeah, so he averaged 37.7 minutes per game this past season. Before that, with Drake, 39.4, which led the entire nation. And just as a reminder, this is 40-minute games we're talking about, not 48, to listeners. And so he gets the ball basically every time he's up the court in this Ben McCollum system. Like he just loves Bennett Sturtz, and it's all Bennett Sturtz, and he plays out of the pick and roll, and he generates offense like at a pretty high level out of that. And he didn't have like the fortune of playing with a super gifted roster. Like Iowa maybe had one other like future NBA player in Alvaro Fulgaris, who's now actually going to go to Louisville. So he won't even come to the league this year. But other than that, like there are some good college role players, but really it was just like all Sturtz. And he was able to make them a tournament team that advanced deep into the tournament. Was it Elite Eight for them or Final Four where they played against Illinois? Now I can't
I think it was Final Four.
I'm gonna look it up. This is bad podcasting. I think they beat Florida like Sweet 16 versus Iowa versus Illinois. Elite Eight.
Right, yeah.
Because then Final Four was Illinois, UConn.
Arizona? No, yeah.
Illinois, UConn. Illinois. Gosh dang it, man. Okay, well that's all right. But my point is this: like Sturtz, he was like the creator for good college offenses and does pretty much everything you would want from a ball guard in the NBA, from the pick and roll stuff to the shooting, to just like general like passing versatility and being able to push the pace in transition. And he's talked about it himself, that because he did so much, both like in terms of like usage, but also in terms of minutes, there's stuff to his game that he hasn't really been able to show. Like I saw this really interesting like stat breakdown, and I wouldn't be able to pull it up right now on shorthand, but his like steals and rebounding and stuff, like first half of games to second half of games dropped noticeably because he's playing so many minutes. Like the guy, he's obviously got like crazy conditioning, but also like he's gonna get gassed. He's human, so there's that aspect. But then there's also like he's a good enough shooter where if he gets to play off ball, like he can probably do some more stuff as like a catch and shoot to a movement guy, or even just like a secondary creator once he has the opportunity to play with more, just like more playmakers than he got to at Iowa. So really impressive offensive prospect. It's tough to say exactly how much he'll be able to scale up into the NBA, but the profile is like really unique, I think.
Yeah, I think I think the experience of being like that is an uncommon basketball experience for a guy to basically never come off and then being like the entire offense. I'm not sure if you have his stats up.
I do,
but how many turnovers did he average per game?
Yeah, so think about how many minutes he played. 1.8 turnovers to 4.4 assists.
See,
that's nuts.
Yeah, that's crazy. And that was my read on him as a player. Like he just seems like when I said floor general, like he seems like a guy that you can rely on to get the job done, and he can make all the passes in the world. He's a really creative passer. The issue is obviously like the explosion and the ability to beat guys off the dribble, but like. Yeah, I mean, if you want a rock solid guy who's not going to make mistakes, I mean, really, that is insane that he played that much. He handled the ball that much and barely turned the ball over. That's really impressive. But yeah, he definitely doesn't scream like star, and most guys in this range don't. But he'd be like, if you got him at like 23, you'd be like jumping up and down.
Absolutely. I think that there are people, like there are definitely people who I've talked to or seen that would argue like he could be a false ceiling sort of guy where it's like we say like, oh, I mean like he's a senior and he's not really like an NBA athlete. So like surely his ceiling isn't that high, but also like, are we just looking at the profile of an obvious NBA offensive star? Shoot, I don't know. I mean, I don't think so, but I wouldn't put it out of like the total realm. Like your point about him like being able to like really beat guys off the dribble or like that general level of like burst and explosion. It's like there's kind of two sides to that like screen reliant guard argument. It's like you don't want a guy who needs that because it just like feels bad. You want more like versatile players, but at the same time, think about how many screens they run in the NBA, and if he's so good playing out of that, like they're gonna let him use that.
Yeah, for sure.
I think you could also maybe argue like I don't think that he's a bad athlete just like in general, so maybe like you tone down his minutes and workload, and all of a sudden because he's not having to like conserve his stamina so much, he could have more plays where he can like take off A to B, beat a guy to the rim, like whatever it is. Like if he's not so worried about having to stay stay like ready, have his breath for all 40 minutes of a game, like he might be able to do more. So that's just something to keep an eye on. Definitely like has all the tools to be like a great backup at the very least.
Yeah, I imagine he would be like most prospects in the interview process are going to be like minimal kind of stuff you can glean from that. Like it's going to be mostly based on the tape, but he would be uniquely situated to like the interview process as he goes through the draft, just like with teams finding out like you said, like how limited he was by the fact that the circumstances at Iowa, and like not limited, but like how things might have changed if he was in a more normal circumstance, I guess. But do you have any closing thoughts on him before we can move on to your mock draft?
Not really, other than just like I'm pretty interested to see him play in a different sort of scenario for the first time. Maybe that could be as soon as summer league. We'll just get a different feel like pretty soon for what he might look like when he's not just like the guy. And then I think we'll be able to like really tell a lot about his game from that.
Cool. All right, let's get on to your mock draft, Finn. We'll probably do this pod for like an hour and a half. So we've got 25 minutes left, and I'll just go through who you have the Bucks selecting and then like other interesting fits. So
perfect.
You have for the Bucks, you have them selecting LeBaron Philon. So what do you like about Philon's fit with the Bucks and like Ryan Rollins and stuff? And yeah, why do you have them picking him?
Yeah, so I think he's got, to me at least, like kind of the perfect storm of like he's gonna be like a pick that makes sense if Giannis stays. He's gonna be a pick that makes sense if Giannis leaves. He's gonna be a pick that makes sense next to Ryan Rollins, but he's gonna be a pick that has that sort of like star upside that like I still want to see the Bucks target no matter what. We talked about him on the last pod, so like I won't rehash everything, but like the general sell on him is just like really high level offensive creator who is also like a legit combo guard, and for the most part I think projects to be able to do more than just like get baskets on the ball and play out of the pick and roll. So like I feel like his fit with Ryan Rollins would be pretty solid. That would not be like a Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum rehash with 2 6'1" guards. It'd be two like 6'3" and lengthy, 6'4" and lengthy guards. I think that there's a world where Philon becomes some sort of like real star offensive player, like just to like some level. And like he could play next to Giannis, and then I also think he could be a guy who could like you could formulate the team around alongside Rollins if Giannis leaves.
Yeah, he the thing I love about him, like his ability to create advantages. Like we spoke about Nate Ament on the last podcast, and like he's just a really like it's just fun. He's so big, but he struggles to really create good shots and like create advantage. Like it's a lot of tough shots, and the whole thing is like very like grind to a halt, kind of like, you know, push, jump over a guy and like shoot. Whereas like Philon, he's got all these little like crafty moves. He knows how to play in the pick and roll. And that's like, yeah, that's really interesting to me. And then obviously like his profile of like improving his 3-point shooting while increasing his volume in year 2 at Alabama was also really impressive. And these are all like really good signs for him and his future in the NBA. I do worry a bit that like number one, his explosion is somewhat worrying for me. And like I remember I was watching a video of him doing his pro day at the combine. He was really having to like put a lot of effort into just dunking the ball. Like it seemed like maybe he was just tired. I don't know, but like it just seemed a bit like like tough to get up there and stuff. And then also the scrawny bit, like he is quite skinny. What do you think about? Yeah. Anyway, you can take that anywhere you want with the 3-point volume, or you can look at the kind of like negatives that I just pointed out.
Yeah, there are fair concerns with him. It's gonna be that way with probably most of the guys who are available at 10. As like, yeah, he's not the best athlete, like you mentioned, the explosion. I do think, like, I saw some clips of him shooting at his pro day, I think, and he kind of looked to be just half-assing things a little bit, which maybe that doesn't really, like, you look at that, that's not what you want to see either. But yeah, so like he's gonna have to get a little bit stronger. But I do think like he's got the foundation of like he's shown he can compete on defense and he's lengthy, and again he's not like 6'1", so like he's got that going for him. And if we're talking about like the explosion, that the handle is so good that I think he can still get to his spots, and like obviously he'll be able to play out of ball screens too. So like that definitely like limits him a little bit. Like we were not talking about like Tyrese Maxey here, but like still like that who's got like the burst and the handle and all that. But like the handle is really, really good with Phylon, like one of the best in the class. So like I still generally trust his ability to be able to go get some shots.
Yeah, just like having played basketball, like it's there's always like you can get guys who are really strong who just have no idea how to like change pace and like do this and that, and like I'm cognizant to like not overrate the fact that he's skinny and like that he's not all that explosive, because generally like the ability to just know how to play basketball will override those things. So I would be pretty happy with a Phylon pick at 10. I'll tell you that much. All right, let me pick someone from your mock. You got the Clippers taking Adai at 5. What do you think? Why do you think he's a good fit there?
Yeah, so now like the Kawhi Leonard situation is pretty interesting. I guess it seems like there might be more real steam to him getting traded than I kind of expect, but I think that like to me it just feels like they don't need like a franchise altering swing. Like they don't need to go get Darius Acuff because they got Garland. Right now they have Kawhi, and they like generally have the foundation of like a team that can make the playoffs with like for the next couple seasons, even though they didn't this year. So when you look at how they just sold high on Zubac, which I think, well, it was a smart move, especially now that they have this 5th pick. I mean, like, come on, that's incredible value as good as Zubac was at times for them. But like now you've got that clear hole at center because Brook Lopez is, as much as we love him here, as Bucks fans, is not a starting center anymore. And I really like Yannick Niederhauser, but he's also not the long-term center. So if you got Garland, and even if Kawhi gets traded, you still have Garland right now as like a core piece. Mara just makes a lot of sense with them, just from like a fit situation. And I think he's a high enough upside, like good enough prospect where it's justifiable to consider him at that range. But like, especially like, I just think it makes sense with the Clippers. So like, I know Wagler and Mikal Brown are kind of like the popular names for them, and I wouldn't be mad at that at all. Like, I think that would make a lot of sense, but I do think that Mara is like at least worth really considering for them. Yeah. They could also trade down and get him. Like, I like the fit. And if they were like, hey, Hawks, do you want to come up to 5 and get like Mikal Brown or like your choice of the guards, and then we'll just get Mara at 8, that would also be great business, because it's just like it's the fit that really like appeals to me.
Yeah, he just like screams like Zach Edey to me. Like everyone overthought the Zach Edey pick, and it was just like, oh yeah, ginormous guy who like solid. He's got better feel than Edey probably. Yes, and he just screams like really solid player. We've spoken about our analysis is on the last pod about him. You've got this one that surprised me. Nate Ament going 14th to the Charlotte Hornets. What were you thinking behind that pick?
The type of player that they need right now, like if you're assuming that LaMelo Ball, Kon Knippel, and Brandon Miller is kind of like their core, and then like you maybe even like Moussa Diabate as a center or Ryan Kalkbrenner, the forward spot is where they're a little thinner, and like in terms of like physicality and defense too, like those general areas of the game, because we know they can shoot it. And I think that Amen, like if you look at what, even though he's so theoretical, what his NBA traits are, it's for the most part, it's like being able to play physical and get to the line and defend. This is assuming a bit of muscle growth, but like also rebound, and he can shoot. And I think that like he could be able to play in their offense and like get some easier looks. And like if he becomes the player that he is like prophesized to be, if you will, then like that would be a really, really useful player for their core.
Yeah, he seems like a solid, like if you were to compare like his fit with like, I don't know, the Brooklyn Nets, where they might be asking him to like come in as more as like a primary operator, whereas like the Hornets, it feels like he could kind of come along a bit slower. While also like this spot that they're in, they are betting on some upside with him. I really like this fit. This is actually a really interesting fit, to be honest.
Yeah, I felt good about this pick. Like even like going into the mock, like I kind of had it in my head, because like yeah, if the Nets take him at 6 or whatever, like there's gonna be a lot of pressure on him. And then there's like, think about the Hornets just took Salon. It's like 6th overall in 2024, and like man, so that's almost like a little bit scary for taking a guy like Amen. But like the difference in the draft spot, and now like also the difference in the roster construction, and Amen's also just the better prospect. Like I think this would be a good landing spot for him. But honestly, I don't know if he'll actually go this low. But he's such a wild card.
Yeah, dude, the Ament rumors at like 6, like I mean, I was, as we know,
that's your boy.
I'm one of the more intrigued Ament guys that you will find. And still, I'm kind of like, yeah, if the Bucks get 10 and 13, let's take a more like known commodity at 10, and then like, okay, like maybe you want to swing at 13, but like there has to be like 2 picks involved, so you know you're getting like a solid player, and then you can like swing for upside. When I saw like the Nets are interested in taking him at 6, my eyes are just like, oh, like that could, yeah, that is a risky pick.
Absolutely, yeah, it'd be chaos.
All right. Let me see. I mean, Hunter Steinbach to the OKC Thunder seems like a great fit. Like pretty straightforward. Like just give them big man depth, rebounding against those like massive Western Conference centers and stuff. Yeah. What do you? Is that your read on it too?
Yeah, it's just like, as much as I do have some concerns about him, he would be put in like a minimized like responsibility role in OKC, and that to me, as I wrote in the article, like that's like Isaiah Hartenstein insurance, because I don't know what's gonna happen like with his contract and if he'll stick around or what. Kind of same thing goes for Jalen Williams, the other one, Jay Will. And so like Chet, I don't really think he's a 5 anymore. Steinbach, like there you go. That makes sense. He could kind of just be a Hartenstein regen almost.
Yeah, and just like set bone crushing screens for Shea and all those guys. Like, yeah,
absolutely,
seems like a great fit. Ooh, Christian Anderson to the Raptors at 19th. I like this fit. What do you see there?
Yeah, they need that kind of guard. I don't have any questions with the Raptors when it comes to defense and rebounding and size right now, but I do have questions when it comes to their half-court offense. So it was him or Sturts, honestly, that I considered, and I ended up going with Sturts at 21 of the Pistons, which I also just adore as a fit, because the Pistons too, no questions with the defense or with the size, but with like that general like half court creation, that's what they need. So you could almost you could just swap those two guards, and I think that makes sense. But like the Raptors have enough size behind a smaller guy like Anderson, where I think they'd be able to cover him up well enough, and then he could really kind of mix the drink for him on offense.
Yeah, that's a great phrase. Mix the drink. Yeah, he feels like their offense is kind of just like a squeaky wheel, and he would just grease that wheel and just make it kind of flow a little bit better. All right, let me see. Okay, so you got Luigi Swigo. This is a pretty big riser, going 23rd to the Atlanta Hawks. I know basically nothing about this guy other than the fact that he started being talked about. Like he declared for the draft, and then everyone started talking about him. He's ginormous. How big is he? Like 7'2"?
I think 7'1", 7'2". Big fella.
He is actually, ironically enough, he played in the same team as Boguliub from. Didn't he play in Serbia? Yeah. So anyway, tell me about his game and why you like his fit with the Hawks.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I will just like preface like part of my logic is like, so I kind of don't like it, but like the international withdrawal deadline, for these guys that are like not from college but from overseas is a lot later, and I would
also he could still
drop out, and
interesting.
He has said apparently that if he doesn't go top 20, he's going to go to college, and I think the rumors that it's Villanova is where he'd end up. So I kind of like, I do actually like him. So I'll talk about his fit in a second. But like part of the logic is like if he stays in the draft, that probably means he's going to go first round. But to me, he makes sense with the Hawks because like Mara is a guy who's getting talked about a lot for them. Like they kind of need that big center still, and that is Swigo. But he, like, the appeal with him is that like he's really big, but like the shot, there's some potential there, and the passing, there's some potential there. So you could see him like kind of do some of the stuff that a Kongwu does, but just as like a bigger, less mobile guy. So like playing next to Jalen Johnson, being like another, like a new real rim protector that they haven't had since Clint Capella, and they kind of tried to do with Porzingis, but then he just couldn't play. Like I think that kind of like big center, they missed out on Mara in my mock, but now they get a guy who's got that potential at that position.
Cool. All right, you cooked on this one, man. Isaiah Evans, number 30 to the Dallas Mavericks. I watched naturally I watched a lot of Duke this year. I spoke about those Ricky actions where I was referring to Malik Thomas, where they run the guy off the first screen and then back off that same screen for a flare. That was like a staple of Duke's offense. With Isaiah Evans was a guy who they targeted in a lot of those actions, and pairing him back up with, like, he just seems like a guy. He can do the guard to guard screening and then popping out, and pairing him with like in those actions with like Cooper Flag. That seems like a really good fit.
Yep, he's as dynamic as it gets when it comes to like a wing shooter and just like the type of shots he can take and make, and he's got good length. So like the 3-and-D profile is really there, and I think that that fit just like it makes a lot of sense in my head where I feel like it doesn't even need a ton of explanation, really. I think that'd be really fun, especially with like that Duke to Duke element, Flag playing with Isaiah Evans once again.
Yeah, and then I don't think it's going to happen, but I'm pretty sure I heard something that they were reaching out to John Shire to be the coach too.
Oh my gosh,
the Mavericks.
It'd be kind of awesome.
Yeah, so that would be fun.
I guess he's young enough, or maybe one day he could he'd be like willing to gamble on that NBA jump. But also, I feel like that doesn't really happen. Like in history, that happened where college coaches would jump to the NBA, but now it doesn't seem like that happens as much. Maybe I'm just like oblivious to something right now in the moment.
Yeah.
But like,
well, no, you are right, because I remember Calipari, however you want to say it. He, I believe he coached the New Jersey Nets for a period of time, and like his style in the NBA, like his rough and tumble style that he used with kids in college, did not work in the NBA. And I believe he might have lasted a couple seasons, and then
I heard him. I like some video that I watched. Like I heard him talk about this kind of recently enough where I remember it. Where he was saying like his approach of like developing players and like playing his rookies. He was saying that like didn't really fly with the NBA teams. Like after I watched that video where he was talking about that, I was like looking back at those Nets teams that he coached, and it was like, man, I don't know, like Kerry Kittles or like Keith Van Horn. It might have been the guys, like he played them as rookies and they were actually productive, but like the team just kind of like tailed off. So I don't know. But like, like Dan Hurley, was in like talks for like the Lakers job.
Yes.
And stuff. But it's like, no, like you just stay at UConn. Like that honestly
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, Danny Hurley is one where those prime UConn team, like the ones that won the national championships, like some of the most just like beautiful offense you will ever watch. Like the counters and like the way that everyone on the court knew like every read that was meant to happen. Like if you want to watch some beautiful basketball, go watch those teams. Like, and obviously with the 30-second shot clock, like generally that like slows down the game. But when you have like an offense as beautiful as that, it just like makes it more interesting because it gives more time for kind of stuff to occur. But here's another one where it's like his demeanor in the NBA. I don't know about that.
Yeah, and first of all, that's high praise coming from a guy who has admitted on here that he doesn't like college basketball. So that's notable.
Yeah.
But yeah, I also think that like you mentioned that offense is interesting just because like that the way that basketball is played in the NBA is obviously a lot different than college. So like some of that stuff that he does on offense, I feel like almost wouldn't even like look the same in the NBA. It's the longer shot clock, but like, you know, college is so much more like it's read and react stuff too that UConn does and Hurley does, but it's also like sets still. So like he would have to like develop more of like a freelance playbook, I guess, that still like involves a lot of like that off-ball stuff, but it's just like, you know, the NBA just plays a lot differently.
Yeah. I feel like the NBA just kind of devolves a little bit more to like, okay, let's get to the pick and roll. Let's get to the, you know, the star player does his thing or whatever. Whereas like that UConn team, it was like, well, those UConn teams, I should say, it was just like so selfless. Like there's not one person who we know is going to shoot on this possession. It was just like whatever happens, the read is the read. And it was just really interesting.
Right. Like when your star players are, like Jordan Hawkins or Tristan Newton, who great college players now both suck in the NBA. It's like, you got to do things a little different. They're really well-rounded teams, but like you don't have some like ISO guy.
Yeah. This is one that I've seen mocked a lot. Henry Visar to the Lakers. I feel like I've seen that mocked like by like 4 different people at this point, but he's a super interesting one. He was at Arizona, and people were like focusing on who was the other big, the Lithuanian big. I can't Krivas. That's the one. Yeah, and people were focused on him, and then it just like whispers behind the scenes like, are we sure we're focused on the right big here? Because this Visar guy can really play, and then he really like had a solid season at North Carolina. So tell me about that fit.
Yeah, it was really him or Terrace Reed for me, which Terrace Reed is another guy who I've seen that mock to the Lakers a billion times. The center thing just makes sense for him. I think the DeAndre Ayton has left so much of a bad taste in people's mouth, but also it's like, okay, well, if you have Luka and you have Austin Reeves, like what's the natural thing to pair with them? It's an effective big. And so Vesar, it's like roll man, pop man, rim protector, like he's going to be able to play next to the stars. Like this is catering to Luka, and I think that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah. All right, let's round this out. I was literally just about to mention, I mean, Terrace Reed to the Celtics. I think like if they got him at 27th, they would be really happy with that pick. And like this guy like undersized as a center. I'm not sure how tall he is. He'd be like 6'10" at the most. I feel like maybe like that's even overdoing it. But
I got the numbers while you keep talking. Hold on.
Yeah, he is ginormous. Like this.
He's actually about 6'11" in shoes. He's 6'9" and 3/4 barefoot.
Okay.
So I guess he's like a little like he measured a little taller than people expected because like I didn't think you were totally off base there. Yeah,
maybe it's just because of the illusion of the way he looks on the court, but he's so wide, and he's so strong, not right. You know, but good God, this is a ginormous human being. Obviously, they need help at the center position. See what they. Cater is probably the long-term starter at this point. Not long-term, but like immediate-term starter. But yeah, I really like this pick.
Yeah, that was just like I wrote in the article, you're doubling down on that success with Keita after seeing how Vucevic looked in the playoffs, it's like, yeah, okay. I mean, like, shout out Big Vooch. He was also just a bad matchup in that series that they lost. But, like, yeah, they're just getting, like, a winner. I really just think Darius Reed is a winner, and the Celtics want to win.
Yeah, cool. All right, well.
Lastly, really quick, just because I mentioned
it,
Koa Pete to the Nuggets is what I had at 26, and that I just wanted to mention that, like, after our Pete conversation, because that would be going to a team that I think would make it simple for him. It's pretty easy to me to picture him. Well, as easy as it is to picture Pete playing in an NBA offense anywhere, I think it's easiest with a team like the Nuggets, where it's like he's cutting next to Jokic or whatever, rolling for a Jokic pick and roll or anything like that. Like,
yeah,
he's not gonna have to do anything off the dribble ever when you're with the Nuggets and the way they play offense. So I think that would be like a potential home run situation for him.
Yeah, that does feel like a pick. Like, just he won't really have to. Yeah, he would be able to come on slowly with them. Yeah, that's a really good pick, to be honest. Did you have any other particular ones that you really wanted to talk about?
I guess I'll just to wrap it up real quick, I'll ask you how you felt about the idea of Kareem Lopez. Like, I know falling to 29 probably isn't fully realistic. Again, this mock, to be clear to listeners, it's just what I would do. Not like considering like a prediction, but yeah, his fit with the Cavs and like at 29, like if he was the 29th pick, as a guy, you're skeptical of him just as I am. Like, how would you feel about him, like, in that context?
Yeah, I mean, at 29th, it's certainly a much lower risk than it is like in the lottery, where I would be very scared to take him. But yeah, I mean, the Cavs need some help, like some future help at the wing kind of positions. He's an uber physical player, like like it would be a great high upside swing for them. But as a team that's like right in the playoff hunt, I think like he would be spending a good amount of time in the G League in his first 2 years with them. So yeah, that's kind of my the extent of my analysis with him. Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, we're pretty much on the same page there. Like, I wrote in the article, but like that's not necessarily the most ideal developmental context for him, in the sense where like the NBA on the court reps might not come as often as you might want for a guy like him, like in the first couple seasons. But at the same time, if he's able to develop, like if they're patient and if they're able to kind of turn him into the player that he theoretically could be, he is the type of player that they would need.
Yeah. Cool. All right. That about right. We've gone for an hour and a half now, so we'll probably wrap it up here. But yeah, we hope everyone enjoyed this kind of draft bonanza part 2 that we did. Everyone go check out Finn's mock. He's done really good write up for like literally all of these guys, and he's even got a full second round. Yeah,
I sure do. I couldn't do 60 write-ups, as tempting as it was, but
I don't blame you. Yeah, I actually really want to have a look at this. It's really interesting. But yeah, thanks for listening. We've obviously still got the community mock draft going, at least for a little bit longer. I'm not sure how long ultimately that lasts, but probably at least 4 more guys in the can, I'd say. So go check that out. Obviously, NBA finals are on. It feels like the Giannis resolution is coming relatively soon. So see what happens there. But other than that, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.